Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hopefully you're doing well. I know it's been a while and hopefully the video looks alright. We are on the GoPro. This is take number 2. Hopefully I've got things sorted this time around, but as you can tell by the thumbnail and the title, we're going to be talking about the AFL Grand Final that happened yesterday and sort of the state of where the AFL is at. So for those living outside of Australia, the AFL is the Australian Football League. Now, football in Australia does mean a little bit different to football globally, which is our sort of native game and the game that we mostly play here in Australia at the moment. I shouldn't say at the moment because it is just in general the most played game, with soccer really sort of taking over now, but we still call the AFL the AFL. Anyway, we had a game yesterday, Geelong versus Sydney, and Geelong just absolutely dominated from start to finish, which made the game quite disengaging to watch really, which is disappointing, being that it was the penultimate game of the season. So I want to kind of unpack a little bit of yesterday, and then sort of go into the state of where AFL is at the moment. So if you're excited for these types of longer form discussion videos, make sure you like, comment and subscribe, because I'm thinking of bringing this series, well not even really a series, but this style of video onto the channel a little bit more, to sort of replace the podcast that Damien and I used to do, where we used to sort of have the hour-long form, where at least here I can address more individual issues and sort of unpack them with a bit more detail and get your views and thoughts in there. But also let me know what the audio is like as well. If I need to, I can get a microphone for the GoPro, but we'll see how the mic goes by itself. So let's get cracking. Yesterday, everyone said Geelong too old, too slow. Too bad, because they have run away as premiers of the AFL season here for 2022, and what a convincing way it was for Geelong to get the job done yesterday. Plenty of experienced players really stepping up. You look at a Norm Smith winner, Isaac Smith, with 30 odd touches and 3 goals. Tom Hawkins was absolutely dominant. Dangerfield had big periods of the game where he played really well, as did Joel Selwood. Experience prevailed in essence yesterday. I did cover it in the previous recording, but when you compare the Sydney and Geelong sides, Geelong's team absolutely trumps them for experience, and that's really what it was. The midfield for Sydney just couldn't deal with the big star-studded names of Geelong's midfield, and you know, just every centre clearance felt like it was going the way of the Cats. And you know, everyone who I was watching the game with yesterday knew straight away that Sydney were going to struggle pretty early on with the way that things were going, but it kind of continues a trend, unfortunately, that I've seen through the AFL over the last few years. So obviously last year we had the grand final over in Perth, which was the Bulldogs and Melbourne, and that game was quite closely contested for the first half, and then Melbourne just absolutely run away with it. Then we had the Geelong-Richmond Grand Final over in Queensland, in Brisbane, where again Richmond just dominated that one start to finish. The year before that was Richmond GWS, again Richmond dominated. And then, you know, 2018 we had the West Coast Collingwood, which was the last real close grand final, which obviously has the Dom Sheed moment, where he kicks the goal from the boundary. And then you've got the Richmond Crows one, again Richmond dominated. And then you've got the Sydney Bulldogs, but then prior to that you've got the Hawthorn three-peat, which they weren't particularly great grand finals to watch either. So that goes back 9 years, guys, where we've had 2 really close grand finals in 9 years. And this is my main issue. How can a league that is so competitive, and I really do believe that the AFL has made some really big strides forward in the last few years with regards to getting other teams involved and making sure that it's not a dominance by 3 or 4 clubs, but more often than not we get to the big dance, the big game at the end of the season, and it's just not competitive. And I feel like the AFL is missing out on a real big opportunity here to keep the league close by this big game. You know, it feels like there's just one team every year that's just going to dominate. They roll through, and that's just how it is. And you know, more often than not, some of the prelim finals over the last few years, I can think back already to the Sydney Collingwood one last week, and last year there wasn't really a close one, but Port the year before with Richmond was a brilliant game. Although it was low scoring, it was a really good contest to watch for the neutral. And I feel like we're getting this run of prelim finals that are really good, and then, you know, are those teams in those prelims spent, or are they playing that grand final a week early? I don't know. But, you know, how do we get, or how can we maximise the growth that we can see out of these games? And that's what I'm the most worried about is, you know, can we find a way to get the grand final is a bit more evenly contested. But anyway, moving through, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments about it, because I think the AFL needs to do something. Is it the fact that it's at the MCG? Who knows? Because obviously we've had a couple grand finals at other venues over the last few years, and that hasn't helped at the same time. So I'm not really 100% sure on what needs to happen in order to get the grand finals a bit more competitive. But I think we all can talk about those grand finals from back in the day with Sydney and West Coast, and you know, the Port Adelaide Brisbane one. I mean, that would end up being a bit of a blowout at the end of the game, but it was tight all the way through to about the middle of the third quarter. How do we make sure that we get these grand finals a little bit more close together? I really don't know, because I feel like I haven't seen really one, obviously since 2018 and 2016 were really good examples of that. But for all the good work that the AFL's done this year, they need to figure that one out. So I'm very excited for next year as a bit of a preview. I think there's a lot of good teams that are floating in and around the top 8 that didn't make finals, or teams like Richmond and Brisbane and whatnot that were in the finals that, you know, didn't quite have the impact that they thought. The Crows are looking quite good. Port Adelaide, if they can keep a bit of a list together in this trade period, can definitely make a push for it. As you know, the Bulldogs, still a good side. So for a neutral, or for someone who's just getting into the AFL now, should be very, very excited about what the competitive season's going to look like moving forward with regards to the AFL. Obviously, you've got teams like Collingwood who have come from second bottom to, you know, one straight kick away from being in a grand final. So even if you support a Gold Coast or you support a North Melbourne, I think the time is still there. Like, if you can get the list right, you can get a bit of a playing style right and the right coach in, then anything's possible. So I don't want this video to sound like I'm just hammering on the AFL, because, you know, it is a great product at the moment. I think the AFL is in a really good space. They just need to try and maximise on capturing some of these big moments with some better competitiveness from both sides. So big shout out though has to go to Tyson Stengel. Obviously he's been delisted twice from 2 different clubs for different reasons, and you know, obviously given a real lifeline in Geelong, and has absolutely taken that in his stride this year. Kicked 4 goals yesterday and looked absolutely amazing. So big credit to Tyson Stengel. But if you've enjoyed this video, guys, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Obviously with footy being finished, we're going to start shifting over into Premier League mode as well, and the international football in preparation for the World Cup. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the videos around. Let's try and build that community. Make sure you follow me over on Twitter at Paulie29 as well, to make sure you can interact with me over there. And I'll see you guys very, very shortly for another, I don't know what we're going to call this series, another review or match reviews. If you guys can come up with a bit of a name for this series, let me know, and we'll see you guys very shortly to continue analysing all those wonderful things that we love to call massive sporting moments. See you later.